Team Fortress 2's cast of characters are all interesting in their own ways. Whether it's Soldier and his head obsession, or the Heavy with his sandwich obsession, I guess. They are all weird and special in their own way, but there's one character who stands out for one reason. That information about him is a mystery. The Pyro. There are many theories about the Pyro, whether it's the Pyro's gender or if they're even human, where they came from, and what is going on inside his head. I think that the one theory that stuck out to me the most is that Pyro's air filter is obstructed and that his suit is filled with asbestos, causing him not to be able to speak or breathe properly. And while I do think that this is part of what is going on, I believe what's happening under the suit of Pyro is worse. Way worse than just that. This theory is inspired by one analog horror series called The Man in the Suit, or the Godzilla analog horror. The Man in the Suit follows the shooting of the original Godzilla movies, in which we follow the person referred to as Goji by the filming crew. The reason being is that the person in the suit became obsessed with the Godzilla suit. They wouldn't stop wearing the suit for what could have been months. It got to the point where no one on the set actually knew what the guy looked like. Wearing the suit wherever he went, even off the set. To the point where the suit became more than just a suit, but part of him. His flesh melting into the Godzilla suit and becoming one with it. He is now the Godzilla suit, becoming this abomination, hallucinating that they are Godzilla. I will be using lore from the comics, as well as the game files and other media involving the Pyro to theorize on this. The first thing that is known about the Pyro is that in summer of 1968, the Pyro was hired as a mercenary for either the Blue or Red Corporation to join the Gravel War, involving the rivalry of the Mann brothers, along with the rest of the team. 1968 is important due to this being the middle of the Vietnam War, which is canon in the TF2 universe, as well as World War II. Pyro always seems to have been an unknown, and someone that is feared by the rest of the team, seen as unhuman and a maniac. Here is the interview from the Meet the Pyro that you have probably seen before, but after it plays, I want to show off some key information that is mentioned within the interview.
I fear no man, but that thing, it scares me.
No, I ain't talking about that freak, all right? He's not here, is he? How do I get this fucking thing off?
One shudders to imagine what inhuman thoughts lie behind that mask. What dreams of chronic and sustained cruelty.
First thing to note is how this Heavy states,
But that thing, it scares me.
to refer to the Pyro as a thing is not only disturbing, but shows that the Pyro seems inhuman. Then the scout says,
No, I ain't talking about that freak, all right?
another heavy wording for the Pyro. The Meet the Pyro video is supposed to be lighthearted in nature, showing off the duality between what the Pyro does and what he sees. But I think that it also highlights some very important information. While the idea that the asbestos could be what makes him hallucinate, I think that it's way worse. I think this is a case of someone who has seen and been through horrible things in his life, it being similar to that of cases of shell shock and pure insanity caused by the horrors of war. I also want to talk about the Pyro's model and his description. The suit used by the Pyro is not made of rubber, as some would believe, but actually asbestos, which you know asbestos is not really good for you, causing chronic lung disease, lung tissue scarring, and shortness of breath. While I do think that the suit does have some involvement in the Pyro's hallucinations, I do not think that's the only thing going on. Due to asbestos not being something that really causes hallucinations on this scale, but also another thing to note is that when looking at the Pyro's model and removing the head, there's nothing. I do get that this is most likely due to this being an older game, and most games do not have it where you take off the helmet and there being something underneath unless specifically added, but I do think this adds to this. Pyro's voice lines are by far the most haunting, with one I would like to mention specifically that freaks me out. We know how Pyro sets things on fire, that's his whole thing, but when the reverse has happened to him, he says this. While this may not sound like much, someone decided to cipher all the voice lines that Pyro has to the best of their ability. This one saying, "The fire. The fire." As if he himself is scared of the fire. The fire that Pyro uses. The one that he's known for. Why? Here's my theory of what has happened with the Pyro and what is going on with him. The Pyro was a soldier in the Vietnam War. His suit and mask being similar to those used in the Vietnam War as well. With that, a common weapon used in the war was the flamethrower, being used to destroy fields, bunkers, and most importantly, as a way of mentally scarring the enemy by having them see their friends and allies being set on fire. These weapons were used both by the Americans and North Vietnam. North Vietnam specifically started using them in 1967, a year before Pyro joined the team. I think the most likely scenario was this, that Pyro was an American soldier and used a flamethrower as a weapon. Either this, Pyro was using the flamethrower when suddenly, in the midst of its destruction, he realized that he was surrounded by flames when it caught up to him. Or the enemy side was using flamethrowers before flames had started to set him on fire. Don't forget, it was very common to see soldiers also not using their suit while using flamethrowers. On top of that, these suits were not completely fireproof. They were just an aid for most fires, but if someone were to be engulfed in that fire, then they would probably not be able to be saved even by their suit. Pyro was caught ablaze, either within his suit and became melted and meshed within it, barely surviving, or survived the fire and climbed into his suit afterwards and became meshed within it. Unable for anyone to pull him out of his suit, his lungs and mouth fused with his respirator and air filter, and constantly in a state of struggling to breathe, but just barely getting enough oxygen out. His injuries left him discharged and mentally unable to fight in this war, and sent back home. 1 year later, within the suit, he became hired into the Red and Blue team, probably from a psychiatric ward of some sort, back in the state of war, but completely unaware of the violence he inflicts onto others. Now what was left of Pyro is someone destroyed by the war, mentally insane and deeply scarred. His skin fused within the flammable suit that he wears in the game. His muffled noises as he tries to speak, but no one can hear him, for he has no mouth, and he must scream. Pyro dying, decaying, and forever trapped. Pyro can't breathe. That's just my theory. It would be cool to see someone make an analog horror of the Pyro, honestly. Also, thanks for all the support on the last video, and we're almost at 500 subs, so that's cool. I appreciate all the discussion around my last theory, and I'll probably make more because I like talking about the game's lore and coming up with theories. Also, did you guys know that Pyro became the CEO of a company? That's pretty crazy.